The air inside Maison Leclerc was cool, perfumed with citrus and the faintest trace of melting butter, a space designed to feel exclusive, not merely expensive. On this Friday night, the dining room sparkled with carefully arranged glassware, white linen, and the kind of laughter that belonged to people who didn't worry about credit limits. At the entrance, the hostess podium gleamed under the downlights, catching the reflection of every arriving guest. Amanda Riley stood behind that podium, lips pursed, posture perfect. Her eyes scanned the door for familiar faces, for the kind of regulars who tipped big and demanded little. When the Harris family walked in, Amanda was adjusting the reservation tablet, tapping through names with the briskness of someone who liked to be in control. The family's arrival was unremarkable to anyone else. Monique Harris walked ahead, a vision of poised confidence in a tailored navy jacket and crisp ivory blouse, her natural hair gathered in a soft twist at the nape of her neck. Terence, beside her, moved with an athlete's economy, calm, upright, his suit worn easily, like he'd been dressing well since he was a teenager. Jade, 17, was tucked quietly between them, her gaze bright and curious, her notebook peeking out of her crossbody bag. Monique stopped at the podium, offering Amanda a small, unforced smile. "Good evening. Reservation for Harris. Party of 3. Amanda's fingers froze on the tablet. Just for a second. There was a flicker, a half-beat where her eyes swept the family, then the tablet, then the family again. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" Monique's voice didn't waver. "Harris, Harris, 6:30. Amanda's smile flicked on, tight at the corners, manufactured. "One moment," she said, drawing the words out as if she was doing the family a special favor. She tapped the tablet with exaggerated care, brows furrowed in studied confusion. Terence watched her, hands in his pockets, no tension in his stance. Jade leaned forward, not impolite, but curious. She had seen this dance before, in airports, in hotel lobbies, in stores with locked display cases. Amanda's brows arched. "I'm not finding a reservation under Harris," she said, voice just loud enough to be overheard by the nearby couple waiting for the bar. "Are you sure you have the right restaurant?" Terrence's smile was mild but unwavering. "We got a confirmation text 15 minutes ago." Jade, already holding her phone, offered, "I can show you if that helps." Her voice was light, not challenging. Amanda held up a hand. "No, that's fine. Sometimes our system is slow." She swiped, pretended to check another screen. "We're actually booked solid tonight. The wait's probably an hour or more." Monique glanced past Amanda into the dining room. At least 3 tables for 4 stood empty, silverware untouched, napkins folded like origami. A server was resetting another 2-top by the window. A couple, white, dressed for a celebration, was being escorted to a corner banquette, laughing with a server who called them by name. "We made this reservation 2 weeks ago," Monique said, her voice calm as ever. "Can you please check under M. Harris? Sometimes they enter my initials." Amanda tapped again, performing concern. "Nope, not seeing anything. Like I said, you're welcome to wait, but with the rush, I can't promise anything." She didn't offer a wait list. She didn't ask for a phone number. Terence stepped in. "Is your manager available?" Amanda didn't flinch, but something hardened around her mouth. "Jason is very busy with service. I can ask, but it may be a while. We have to prioritize guests with reservations." Monique's eyes didn't leave Amanda's. "We do have a reservation." A silence stretched. Amanda checked her watch. "You can wait by the bar if you'd like. I can't guarantee when, if, a table will open." Jade pressed her lips together. "We'd prefer to wait here, thank you." Amanda nodded stiffly and turned away, already greeting another couple, a pair of men in sports coats, her voice suddenly warm, bright, familiar. "Welcome. Table for Mr. Klein, right on time." Monique, Terence, and Jade moved to the slim leather bench by the front window. No one offered to take their coats, no water, no menus. Jade watched the room, tapping notes quietly on her phone. A server, a young black woman with a neat ponytail and nervous energy, caught her eye for a split second and gave a barely perceptible nod. Then she turned away, arms laden with sparkling water for a table of boisterous regulars. Terence sat with one leg crossed over the other, scanning the room. "You want to go somewhere else?" he asked quietly, for his wife's ears only. Monique shook her head almost imperceptibly. "Let's see how this plays out." The front door opened again. A family entered, white, late 40s, two teenage boys in polos. Amanda's face lit up, all warmth and hospitality. "The Kramers, we have your booth ready. Right this way." Jade looked up at her mother. Monique's face was serene. Amanda reappeared at the podium, glancing their way, then quickly pretending to check her screen again. The Kramers swept past, the father giving Terence a polite but distant smile. Jade whispered, "Did you see how she changed?" Monique smiled at her daughter. Sometimes people forget themselves. Across the room, a couple of servers gathered by the kitchen. Kayla Simmons, the server from earlier, was whispering to another server, a young white woman with the name tag Rachel. Their eyes flicked toward the front, then away again. The restaurant's rhythm hummed along, unbroken on the surface. But inside the Harris family, a quiet storm was gathering. Not of anger, not even of surprise, but of something older, a tired, practiced patience. Amanda's eyes kept darting to the bench, to her screen, to Jason at the bar. She was hoping they'd leave. She was betting on it. Terence leaned over. "She's pretending we don't exist." Monique reached into her bag, pulling out her phone. "Let's give them a few more minutes." A clock ticked audibly somewhere behind the bar. Minutes crawled by. Couples arrived, were greeted, and seated. Two young women came in without a reservation, and Amanda checked the screen, then miraculously found a two-top for them within 2 minutes. Jade watched every move. She'd seen her mother in this mood before, patient, implacable, the calm before something inevitable. 10 minutes became 15. A white-haired man in an apron emerged from the kitchen, scanning the room for someone. When he caught Amanda's eye, she jerked her head toward the waiting Harris family. He walked over, apron crisp, voice practiced. "Evening, folks. I'm Jason Whitaker, the manager. Can I help?" Monique stood, offering a hand. "Monique Harris, we have a reservation, 6:30, confirmed this afternoon." Jason's smile was smooth, almost sincere. "Let's check the system again. Amanda, can you show me?" Amanda produced the tablet, scrolling. "No Harris at 6:30 or any time tonight?" Jason clicked his tongue. "I'm terribly sorry. We're packed tonight. Something must have happened with your reservation." Terence stood, even and polite. "That's strange. We received a confirmation text, and I called the front desk to verify." Jason's voice was regretful. "Our system's been glitchy lately. Wish I could help, but right now we're fully booked. If you'd like to leave your name and number, I'll call you as soon as something opens up. Or perhaps you'd prefer to come back another night. Desserts on the house next time." Jade watched her father's jaw tighten, just a little. Monique's reply was gentle but pointed. "We came tonight for a reason. This is my daughter's birthday." Jason hesitated, glancing at Amanda, who wouldn't meet his eye. Terence's voice dropped barely above a murmur. "I saw several open tables when we arrived." Jason's smile became brittle. "Those are reserved for parties that have yet to arrive. I'm sure you understand." The entryway suddenly felt smaller, colder. Jade, sitting now, scribbled quietly in her notebook. Turned away, table empty for 15+ Minera's other families seated. Monique pressed. "Can I see your reservations list?" Jason hesitated, just a split second too long. "I'm sorry, I can't share that information. Privacy, you know." Kayla, the server, passed by on her way to the kitchen. She glanced at the Harris family, then at Amanda. Amanda gave her a small shake of the head. Kayla's jaw set, but she kept moving. Jade watched, filing away every detail. The way Amanda's voice rose in volume when speaking to the Harris family, lower for everyone else. The way regulars were greeted with hugs, and how their mistakes were forgiven. A couple arrived late, white, flustered apologies tumbling from their lips. Amanda looked exasperated, but then offered them a table anyway. Monique watched every move. Her patience, honed by years in rooms where she was underestimated, didn't crack. Terence checked his watch. "We've been waiting over 20 minutes." Amanda shrugged, eyes fixed on the screen. Like I said, we're full. Maybe next time, call ahead so we can be ready. Jade bit back a retort. Monique squeezed her hand. Across the foyer, Jason returned to the kitchen, voice low. Table of 3 says they have a reservation. Harris. Sound familiar? Chef Brett Morgan didn't even look up from his plating. Not on my list. If they didn't book through our app, they're not in. We've got press in tonight. No time for mistakes. Jason lowered his voice. They're not leaving. Brett sighed, already dismissing the problem. We don't have time for this. If they cause trouble, ask them to leave. I don't care who they are. Jason went to the bar, poured himself a glass of water, and watched the Harris family, frustration building behind his professional veneer. Amanda, back at the podium, smiled as a new group arrived. Welcome, Mr. Fletcher, party of 4. Your table is ready. Jade's fingers flew across her phone. She was documenting it all, the names, the times, the faces. At 7:05, nearly 40 minutes after their arrival, Monique stood again. Her voice was even, unhurried. Amanda, is there any table available now? Amanda's eyes flashed irritation. We're doing our best, ma'am. If you'd like to leave, I understand. Otherwise, please wait quietly. Jade stood too. Mom, let's just... Monique shook her head. We'll wait. Kayla returned to the front, approaching Amanda in a low whisper. They've been here almost an hour. Amanda's jaw clenched. Jason said no exceptions. Kayla bit her lip. It's her birthday. Amanda's reply was cold. They're not regulars, let it go. Kayla's gaze darted to Jade, her empathy palpable. Monique finally addressed the lobby, her voice just above a whisper but unmistakable. We have been waiting almost an hour for our reservation. I'd like to know why we're being passed over. Several heads turned. The room shifted, eyes landing on Amanda. Amanda bristled. Ma'am, as I said, we're full. I'm not sure what else you expect. Terrence stood by Monique's side, steady. Respect, he said simply. A man at the bar, halfway through his drink, muttered, That's not right, under his breath. Amanda blushed, then snapped, Please, sir, mind your own business. Jason returned to the podium, voice low. Is there a problem? Monique faced him. Yes, we've watched guests without reservations get tables while we're told to wait. We confirmed our reservation. What is the issue? Jason's smile was gone. We reserve the right to refuse service at any time, ma'am. Jade's voice steady and clear. Are you refusing us because of who we are? The room fell quiet. Amanda's voice shook. We're full, that's all. Monique said nothing. She stood tall, her presence unshaken. We will wait. We are not leaving. A server dropped a tray, glass shattered, echoing in the silence. Amanda looked around, desperate for backup, but found none. Jason's face was stone. If you don't leave, I'll have to call security. Terrence's response was soft, almost gentle. You do what you need to do. We'll do what's right. Jade pulled out her phone, pressed record. Can you repeat that for me, please? Amanda faltered. I said we're full, that's all. Kayla stepped forward, breaking ranks. Amanda, there are open tables. Amanda glared. This isn't your call. Kayla's voice trembled. But it's not right. A line was drawn. The front of the house held its breath. The Harris family did not move. Amanda's hand trembled as she picked up the phone, dialing with more force than necessary. Security, please. We have a disturbance at the front. Jade kept recording. Jason stared down Monique. This is your last chance. Monique's eyes were unwavering. We're not leaving. The clock ticked on. The guests at the bar, now invested, began whispering. The couple who'd just been seated glanced over their menus, unease on their faces. Amanda tried to compose herself, but the mask was slipping. You're causing a disruption. Terrence's voice was soft, measured. We're waiting for our reservation. Security arrived, a young man in a blazer, name tag slightly crooked. He looked at Jason, then at the Harris family. Is there a problem here? Amanda jumped in, desperate for authority. They're refusing to leave after being told we're full. The guard looked uncertain. Do you have a reservation? Monique nodded, producing the confirmation on her phone. We do. 6:30. We've been waiting almost an hour. The guard read the screen, then looked at Amanda. They have a reservation. Amanda's voice wavered. It's not in the system. The guard, caught in the middle, shrugged. If they have proof, maybe you should seat them. Jason interjected, his authority thin. We have no tables. Kayla spoke up again, voice trembling but loud. Table 14 is open. It's been set for 30 minutes. Amanda snapped. That's not your decision, Kayla. The room was silent except for the steady, unwavering presence of the Harris family. Jade stopped recording, her face set. Thank you for your time. Monique's voice was strong but not raised. We'll wait for your manager's supervisor then. Amanda's hand shook. Fine, I'll call. As she turned away, Monique glanced at Terrence. Thank you for standing with me. Terrence smiled, squeezing her hand. Always. Jade tucked her phone away, her face calm but her eyes burning. The room felt different now. The energy had shifted. Amanda retreated, dialing frantically. Jason paced by the bar, watching the Harris family like they were a threat to the very foundation of the restaurant. Kayla hovered near the bench, torn between her job and her conscience. Across the street, lights flickered on in an office above the bakery. Someone watched. Curiosity piqued. Outside, the night deepened, but inside Maison Leclerc, the truth was shining brighter than any chandelier. Monique sat tall, Jade beside her, Terrence resolute. They weren't leaving, and everyone, staff, guests, even the air, knew it. If you've ever waited for something you were promised, waited not just with patience, but with principle, you know what happens to time. Every minute stretches and twists, picking at your nerves, testing your resolve. For the Harris family, waiting at Maison Leclerc became a kind of silent protest, and for everyone else in the room, it became a test of conscience. Minutes trickled by, as heavy and slow as syrup. The hum of voices in the dining room ebbed and flowed, but the focus at the entrance had shifted. Some guests looked away, pretending not to see. Others couldn't help but watch. Curiosity, discomfort, even a glimmer of shame flickered in their eyes. It was as if the very act of waiting had changed the rules in the room, pulling back a curtain that no one wanted to acknowledge. Amanda Riley, once the unchallenged gatekeeper of exclusivity, paced behind the podium with her phone clutched tightly. She kept glancing at the Harris family, then away, then back again, as if expecting them to vanish the moment she turned her head. Behind the bar, Jason Whitaker stood stiff, jaw working, watching the minutes tick by. Chef Brett Morgan poked his head out of the kitchen, eyes narrowed in irritation. You handling the front, Jason? We've got the city council in Section B. Jason nodded, his voice tight. It's under control. Brett shrugged. Don't let a small problem get in the way of a big night. At the hostess stand, Amanda finally got through to her boss's boss. Yes, Lauren, we have a situation. A family says they have a reservation, but I can't find it in the system. No, I already checked for spelling. Yes, no, they're still here. They're just waiting. Yes, in the lobby. Her words grew softer as she caught Monique's gaze. I'll update you. Thank you. She hung up, tapping her nails anxiously on the podium. For a moment, she looked like she might actually wilt under the scrutiny, but her eyes hardened. She squared her shoulders, resetting her mask. Across the room, the servers moved like they were dodging an invisible storm. Kayla Simmons, her arms full of sparkling water, delivered drinks with a clipped smile. As she passed the Harris family, she leaned in ever so slightly. I'm so sorry, she whispered, barely audible. You deserve better. Monique nodded, warmth in her eyes. Thank you, Kayla. The kindness lingered, if only for a moment. It was enough to remind Jade that not everyone in this room saw them as a problem to be solved. A group of well-dressed businessmen arrived, white, mid-50s, loud with confidence. Amanda greeted them with practiced charm. Welcome, Mr. Daniels. Right this way. We have your favorite table waiting. They didn't even glance at the waiting family. As they walked past, one of the men noticed the tension. He raised an eyebrow at Jason. Everything all right out here? Jason gave a thin smile. Just a reservation mix-up, nothing we can't handle. The businessman nodded, uninterested, and followed Amanda to the best corner of the restaurant. Jade sat with her hands folded in her lap, legs crossed at the ankle. Her notebook was open, but she wasn't writing. She was listening. She heard the whispering at the bar, the shifting of feet, the clinking of glasses that suddenly sounded a bit too loud. Every so often, her eyes would flick to Amanda, to Jason, to Kayla, catching every detail. Monique's phone vibrated in her bag. She glanced at the screen, a text from her assistant. "Everything all right? Confirmed your table with the restaurant earlier." Monique replied, "Still waiting, we'll keep you posted." Terrence checked his watch for the 5th time in as many minutes. "It's been over an hour," he murmured. Monique squeezed his hand. "We're not leaving." In the kitchen, Chef Brett was prepping for a new round of orders. The expeditor, a young Latino man named Miguel, looked worried. "Chef, there's some kind of issue at the front. Kayla says a family's been waiting almost an hour." Brett shrugged. "We're busy. If they're not VIP, they can wait. Or go home." Miguel hesitated but said nothing. Back in the lobby, Amanda could feel the weight of the room shifting. The bar was half full now, and more than one patron had noticed the standoff. Some tried to pretend they didn't, diving deeper into their cocktails. Others kept glancing over, waiting for the next move. Kayla made her way back to the Harris family. "Would you like some water while you wait?" she asked, her voice gentle, careful. Monique nodded, her gratitude quiet but genuine. "Thank you." Kayla brought 3 glasses and set them down with a quick smile, as if she was breaking the rules just by being kind. Amanda glared at her, but Kayla only shrugged and walked away. Jason, watching from the bar, finally made his way back over. "I see you're still waiting," he said to Monique, his tone flat. "Yes," Monique replied. "We're not in a hurry." Jason's jaw tightened. "Like I said, we're doing our best." Terrence looked up, meeting Jason's gaze. "It's not about waiting. It's about being seen." Jason didn't reply. At the other end of the room, Lauren Bennett, the PR manager, swept in from the side entrance, clipboard in hand. She caught Amanda's eye and motioned her over. Amanda slipped away from the podium, dropping her smile as soon as she was out of sight. Lauren's voice was low, urgent. "What's happening?" Amanda's tone was defensive. "They claim to have a reservation. Nothing's in the system." Lauren arched an eyebrow. "Did you check alternate spellings?" Amanda nodded, a little too quickly. "Yes, I told them we're full." Lauren looked over Amanda's shoulder at the Harris family. "How long have they been waiting?" Amanda's mouth was a thin line. "Over an hour, I think." Lauren's eyes narrowed. "And you told them?" "I offered to put them on the wait list." Lauren's voice dropped. "Did you check if we actually have open tables?" Amanda hesitated. "Section C has a 4-top, but it's reserved for late arrivals." Lauren frowned. "Keep me updated. We can't have a scene in the lobby, not tonight." Amanda nodded and slunk back to her podium. At the bench, Jade scribbled in her notebook, "Staff split. 1 ally. PR arrived, still no action." Terrence watched her, a quiet pride on his face. "Taking notes?" he asked, teasing gently. Jade grinned. "Always. Never know what people will say when they think no one's listening." Monique's phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from an unknown number. She answered quietly. "Hello?" A crisp, neutral voice replied. "Mrs. Harris, this is Lauren Bennett from Maison Leclerc. I understand you're having some difficulty with your reservation." Monique kept her voice steady. "We've been waiting over an hour for a table we booked 2 weeks ago." Lauren's tone was all diplomacy. "I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. We're very busy tonight. Would you be willing to wait a bit longer while I check with the kitchen?" Monique didn't miss a beat. "We're prepared to wait, but I'd like to understand why others have been seated ahead of us." Lauren hesitated. "I'll look into it personally." Monique ended the call and returned her phone to her bag. Terrence whispered, "Think she'll actually help?" Monique smiled, small and secret. "She'll do what's best for the restaurant, which may or may not be what's right." Out in the dining room, the city officials were getting rowdy. Chef Brett delivered a plate of foie gras himself, bowing and laughing at their jokes. Back at the podium, Amanda's nerves were fraying. Every time she looked at the Harris family, she felt exposed. She tried to lose herself in the screen, in the rhythm of greeting and seating guests, but nothing shook the feeling that the whole room was watching her, judging her. A couple approached the podium. "Hi, we don't have a reservation, but is there any chance?" Amanda cut them off. "Let me check." She tapped the tablet, found a 2-top, and beamed. "You're in luck. Follow me." Jade shook her head. "Unreal." Monique squeezed her shoulder. Some lessons teach themselves. Another 15 minutes passed. The bar grew louder. Kayla brought the Harris family a bread basket, sneaking it past Amanda's glare. On the house, she whispered. Jade smiled, grateful. Thank you, Kayla. Amanda saw and snapped, Kayla, can I see you a moment? Kayla followed her to the service station, where Amanda hissed, You're making us look bad. Kayla stood her ground. We're supposed to take care of guests. Amanda's voice was cold. They're not guests until they have a table. Kayla didn't answer. She picked up a tray and walked away. Jason's patience finally broke. He called Lauren over to the bar. We need to resolve this, he said, voice low. Lauren nodded. I'm working on it. Back at the bench, Monique checked her phone. Jade leaned against her shoulder, tired but not defeated. Terrence watched the room, taking in every slight, every glance. A guest at the bar, a white woman in her 50s, came over and leaned down, voice conspiratorial. I just want you to know this isn't right. I'm so sorry. Monique thanked her, voice even. The apology was awkward but sincere. It made a ripple, one guest breaking the wall of silence. Others looked over, uncomfortable. Amanda's face flushed. Lauren returned to the podium. Amanda, could you step into the office, please? Amanda stiffened but complied. Lauren shut the door behind them. Inside, Lauren's voice was low but fierce. What's really happening? Amanda fumbled. They're not in the system. I checked everything. Maybe they made a mistake? Lauren's eyes were hard. You seated 3 walk-ins in the last half hour. Why are they waiting? Amanda's mouth twisted. I thought we'd be too busy, and Chef said to prioritize regulars. Lauren's tone was cold. Do not turn this into a bigger problem. Fix it. Now. Amanda nodded, defeated, and left the office. She returned to the podium and, without meeting the Harris family's eyes, mumbled, It looks like a table is coming available. Just a few more minutes. Terrence's smile was tight. Thank you. But as Amanda moved to assign the table, Jason intercepted her. Hold it, we don't seat them yet. Amanda's voice shook. Lauren said. Jason cut her off. Lauren's not running the floor tonight. I am. Amanda hesitated, caught between authority and fear. Meanwhile, Kayla approached Monique. There's a table almost ready in my section. I'll keep you posted. Monique thanked her quietly. You're very kind. Kayla smiled. Just doing what's right. Jason paced, wrestling with himself. Chef Brett came out of the kitchen, hands on hips. What's the holdup? Jason explained, voice low. Brett snorted. They can wait. I don't need new problems tonight. If they get upset, offer dessert on the house. Just don't let it become a scene. Amanda, desperate for direction, looked from Jason to Lauren to Brett. Every leader said something different, and every option carried risk. At the bench, Jade turned to her mother. How much longer? Monique stroked her hair. Not much, I think. Terrence added. The tide is turning. They're nervous now. Indeed, a different energy crackled in the air. Guests whispered openly. Kayla brought water again. Rachel Morris, the other hostess in training, stood awkwardly near Amanda, watching everything with wide, uncertain eyes. Suddenly, the lobby doors opened. 2 men in dark suits entered, one black, one white, both with the look of people who had seen 1,000 dining rooms and never been impressed. They conferred quietly with Lauren, who nodded and hurried them toward the Harris family. Amanda's face paled. Jason's shoulders tensed. Lauren introduced the men as regional directors for Maison Leclerc's parent company. I'm so sorry for your wait, the taller man said, voice formal but sincere. We'd like to resolve this now. Monique nodded. We're happy to be seated. Amanda, caught between fear and embarrassment, stammered, Right this way. She led the Harris family to a foretop by the window, ironically, the very table that had been empty for nearly an hour and a half. Kayla appeared to greet them, her smile warm and genuine. I'll be taking care of you tonight, she said, her voice gentle. As they sat, the rest of the dining room turned to watch, curiosity and guilt mingling in the air. Jade smiled at Kayla. Thank you for seeing us. Kayla's eyes flicked to Amanda, then back to Jade. Everyone deserves to be seen. Jason hovered at the edge of the room, glancing from the Harris family to Lauren, then back to the kitchen. Chef Brett, hearing the news, stormed out to confront Jason. Why are they still here? Didn't I say? Jason cut him off, voice urgent. Lauren overruled me. Regional is here. Brett cursed quietly, then plastered on a customer-friendly smile and returned to the kitchen. At their table, the Harris family settled in. Menus were brought, water poured, bread replenished. But the tension lingered, thick and heavy, like a storm waiting to break. Kayla bent down, lowering her voice. "If you need anything at all, let me know." Monique smiled. "We appreciate your kindness." Kayla's eyes were shining. "Not everyone here is blind." The meal began, slowly, tentatively. The dining room had returned to its rhythms, but nothing felt quite the same. Every server, every manager, every guest knew something had changed. Amanda lingered at the podium, hands trembling. Rachel approached her, voice low. "Was it really an accident?" Amanda glared. "Mind your own business." Rachel frowned, but said nothing. She returned to the service station where Kayla was collecting plates. "What happened?" Rachel asked. Kayla shook her head. "Nothing that hasn't happened before." But this time they didn't leave. Rachel watched the Harris family, a new respect in her eyes. At their table, Jade was writing in her notebook. Terrence watched her, pride obvious. Monique, ever composed, glanced around the room. "Sometimes the smallest acts matter most," she murmured. Terrence squeezed her hand. "Sometimes the world needs to see what dignity looks like." The meal unfolded, each course more beautiful than the last, but the taste was bittersweet. Outside, the sky darkened. The city glimmered through the glass walls, 1,000 stories unfolding in parallel. Inside Maison Leclerc, a lesson was being learned. The question was, by whom and how long it would last. Amanda, at the front, was still trying to steady her hands. Jason was already on his phone, texting the owner. Lauren was quietly watching everything, taking notes for the inevitable meeting that would follow. And the Harris family, now seated, now seen, waited for the night to reveal what kind of place Maison Leclerc really wanted to be. The hum of Maison Leclerc returned, at least on the surface. Forks clinked, crystal glasses rang, and the murmur of moneyed conversation washed over the dining room. But there was a fissure running through the night, a hairline crack in the glossy perfection. It ran from the front entrance, where Amanda Riley's hands trembled with adrenaline, all the way to table 14, where the Harris family now sat, menus open but appetites quieted by the slow burn of injustice. Jade could feel it in her bones, the sideways glances from other guests, the pointed efforts of staff to ignore what had just happened, the sharp inhale of a passing server who recognized the Harris name from her school's honor roll. The whole place was pretending nothing had happened, while knowing, deep down, that everything had. Terrence looked across the linen tablecloth at Monique, a faint smile behind his eyes. "What are you in the mood for?" Monique took her time, reading not just the menu, but the room itself. "Something with heart," she said quietly. "Something honest." Kayla appeared, her pad ready, her voice warm and sure. "May I tell you about tonight's specials?" She paused, not with the rote pride of a server rattling off memorized lines, but with the respectful calm of someone trying to restore a little dignity to the evening. Jade looked up, grateful. "Please." Kayla described the plates. Lamb roasted in herbs from the chef's personal garden. Halibut flown in that morning. Beet salad with the tiniest microgreens. She recited the wine pairings, the local cheeses, the rustic bread. For a moment, her enthusiasm was genuine. Jade wrote in her notebook, "Beet salad, lamb, house bread." She added a small star next to Kayla's name. As Kayla collected their orders, Amanda watched from the front, jaw set. She was waiting for the Harris family to complain, to make a scene, to demand some grand apology. Instead, they met her silence with their own, collected, courteous, and unwavering. Jason, behind the bar, couldn't help but watch them either. He watched as Kayla brought sparkling water, as Monique thanked her with a nod, as Terrence exchanged a few words about the cut of the lamb. He watched as Jade sketched quietly in her notebook, eyes darting from plate to server to dining room. Chef Brett, pacing the pass, grumbled to Miguel, "Keep that table moving. No comps, no special treatment. If they so much as look unhappy, let me know." Miguel nodded, nerves on edge. He'd seen plenty of entitled customers in his time, but the Harris family didn't fit the pattern. Their stillness, their composure, was somehow more disruptive than any tantrum. Out in the dining room, Monique unfolded her napkin, her movements deliberate. She met Terrence's gaze. "You see the way they're watching?" Terrence nodded. "They're wondering if we'll do what they expect." Jade smiled, dry. "Disrupt the peace? Cause a scandal? Ask to see the owner?" Monique shook her head, her voice low. "That's not our work, not tonight." Kayla returned with their salads, roasted beets arranged in careful circles, goat cheese piped with precision, microgreens scattered like confetti. Jade made a note. Presentation, exquisite, balance of color, shape, aroma. Terrence took a bite, chewed thoughtfully, and murmured, "Good, bright, acid just right." Jade's eyes flicked to her father, then back to the plate. "How's the vinaigrette?" Terrence grinned, sharp but honest. Kayla watched them, her nerves settling as she realized this table wasn't like any she'd served before. They didn't need to prove anything. They didn't need to be coddled or courted. They were simply there, present, attentive, unshakable. Amanda tried to focus on her tablet, but her mind kept returning to the Harris family. She wondered if they'd complain to management. She wondered if they'd post on social media or write a scathing review. She wondered briefly if they might have friends in high places. Jason, still uneasy, walked by the table under the guise of checking on guests. "Is everything to your liking so far?" he asked, voice tight. Monique smiled gently. "Kayla has been wonderful." Jason's eyes flicked to Kayla, then back to Monique. "I'm glad to hear it. Please let us know if you need anything." Monique nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Whitaker." Jade made a note. Management checks in, not sincere, still watching. In the kitchen, Brett kept one eye on the pass, one on the clock. "Where's that lamb?" he barked. "Table 14's waited long enough?" Miguel plated the dish carefully, drizzling just with a steady hand. He handed it off to Kayla, who delivered it with grace. The lamb arrived perfectly pink, surrounded by roasted root vegetables and a slick of reduction. Jade's eyes lit up. She took a bite, closed her eyes, and sighed. Terrence raised an eyebrow. "Good?" Jade nodded. "Better than good. Depth, warmth, balance." Monique cut into hers. "Chef knows his business." Kayla lingered, watching them savor the dish. For the first time that night, she felt something like hope, a sense that maybe the night could still be salvaged. Across the room, a pair of diners caught Monique's eye and smiled in solidarity. The message was clear. "We saw what happened, and we're with you." Monique acknowledged them with a nod. At the front, Amanda's anxiety simmered. She knew that a mistake like tonight's could end up online, could reach the wrong eyes, could cost her job. She considered apologizing, then dismissed the idea. In her mind, she'd done nothing wrong. She'd followed protocol. Lauren Bennett, the PR manager, circled the room, stopping at table after table, gauging the mood. She saw the Harris family, saw their calm, saw Kayla's quiet service. She nodded to herself, making a mental note. Brett sent out dessert samples to the city council table. Laughter erupted. The councilman clapped him on the back, toasting the chef's genius. The contrast couldn't have been starker. At table 14, Jade finished her lamb, jotting down notes with the careful diligence of someone used to tasting not just with her mouth, but with her mind. Service, warm, attentive. Food, high execution. Atmosphere, strained. Monique smiled at her daughter's focus. "You were born for this, Jade." Jade grinned. "Maybe." Terrence leaned back, surveying the room. "Funny how everyone's watching, but no one wants to see." Monique's voice was gentle. "Most people would rather not know." Kayla brought dessert menus, her tone hopeful. "Can I tempt you with something sweet?" Jade laughed. "I thought you'd never ask." Kayla described the choices: chocolate mousse, lavender creme brulee, lemon tart, each more beautiful than the last. They ordered, sharing bites, discussing texture, flavor, balance. For a moment, the ugliness at the door faded, replaced by something real, a family celebrating, savoring, connecting. But the room hadn't forgotten. Amanda kept glancing over, waiting for a disaster. Jason pretended not to care, but his nerves betrayed him, checking his phone, double-checking the register, snapping at staff. Lauren made another circuit, catching Monique's eye. "Thank you for your patience tonight," she said quietly. Monique smiled. "It's been revealing." Lauren nodded. "We hope you'll come back." Jade wrote, "PR wants closure, not ready to offer it." Dessert arrived. The lemon tart was sharp, the mousse decadent, the creme brulee crackling with perfect caramel. Terence closed his eyes, savoring the flavors. Monique said softly, "Now that's joy." Kayla beamed, proud. The check arrived with a discreet note. "Thank you for your grace this evening. Dessert is on the house." Lauren's signature was below. Monique tucked the note away, her expression unreadable. "Thank you, Kayla." Kayla's eyes shone. "Thank you for letting me serve you." The Harris family rose, gathering their things. The dining room watched as they walked to the exit, heads held high, steps measured and unhurried. Amanda looked away, unable to meet Monique's gaze. At the door, Jason appeared, still hoping to salvage the night. "We hope you'll visit us again," he offered, his words empty. Monique paused, considering him for a long moment. Maybe next time the table will be ready. She left, Terence and Jade beside her. Kayla watched them go, pride and regret mingling in her chest. Out on the sidewalk, the night air was cool, sweet with magnolia. The city bustled, unaware that something had shifted inside Maison Leclerc. The Harris family walked away, the memory of the night tucked into their hearts and notebooks. Inside, the restaurant exhaled, a long, shaky breath. Amanda tried to shake it off. Jason hurried to the office to file a report. Lauren composed a careful email to the ownership group. Brett ranted to his sous chef about problem customers. Kayla cleared the table, gathering the untouched apology note. She folded it carefully, slipping it into her apron. Rachel helped, her eyes full of questions she was too afraid to ask. In the back office, Jason replayed the evening. He wondered if he'd done enough, if he'd protected the restaurant, if he'd protected himself. Amanda filed the night away as an inconvenience, an aberration, something to forget. Brett chalked it up to bad luck. Lauren wrote her report, but couldn't quite shake the feeling that something important had happened, something bigger than just a missed reservation. In a hotel room across town, the Harris family gathered around a laptop. Jade uploaded her notes. Monique wrote her report. Terence reviewed the scores. They weren't just a family after all. They were the inspectors, the ones who held the stars in their hands. Jade smiled at her mother. "Do you think they'll ever know?" Monique's eyes glinted. "They will, tomorrow, and it will be too late to change." Terence closed the laptop. "They made their choices." Jade nodded, satisfied. "I'm glad we stayed." Monique reached over and squeezed her hand. "So am I." In Maison Leclerc, the music played on, the candles burned low, and no one, at least not yet, understood how much tonight had cost them. But change had already begun, one quiet act of dignity at a time. Morning sunlight broke over Maison Leclerc, but inside the walls, the energy was anything but golden. The gleaming glass facade caught the rising sun, reflecting it in hard, cold streaks across the floor, making every imperfection stand out. Even the flowers at the entrance seemed stiffer, the lilies more funereal than celebratory. Amanda Riley arrived early, coffee in hand, the tiredness of last night clinging to her like perfume she couldn't wash off. She paused at the podium, scanning the reservation list with an almost desperate hope that today would be normal, that she could bury the memory of the Harris family, the waiting, the whispers. But her inbox was already flashing with alerts, subject lines with words like urgent, follow-up, and incident. She took a breath, squared her shoulders, and got to work. Guests would arrive soon. She had her script ready. But as Amanda checked the early reservation list, her phone buzzed again, this time a message from Rachel. "You need to see this." In the staff locker room, Rachel's phone was open to a food blog. It wasn't just any blog. It was The Plate, the most read, most feared, most whispered about publication in the city's restaurant world. Rachel's voice trembled as she handed Amanda the phone. "It's about last night. About them." Amanda stared at the headline, her mouth going dry. "When Dignity Waits, a Michelin family's unforgettable night at Maison Leclerc." The world tilted under her feet. She scrolled down and saw it, an account written with quiet power, every detail unflinching. The reservation, the hour of waiting, the coldness at the podium, the empty tables, the kindness of Kayla, the brittle apologies, the stillness of the family as the world spun around them. No names, but everyone who mattered would know. At the bottom of the page, the writer's byline, J.H., Michelin inspector. Amanda's hands shook. She'd heard the rumors, of course. Michelin inspectors traveling as families, never drawing attention. She'd thought it was a myth, a story to keep hosts on their toes. But now the myth had walked through her door, and she'd failed every test. She heard Jason's voice in the hall, snapping at the early shift to polish the glass again. He swept into the room, saw Amanda's face, and frowned. What now? Amanda handed him the phone. He read in silence. His lips pressed into a hard, bloodless line. The words sank in. We waited. We were told to wait. We watched as others were welcomed, as tables stood empty, as time stretched into something heavier than hunger. We watched one staff member, Kayla S., show us kindness and courage. For her, a star. For the rest, a lesson. Jason closed his eyes. No, no, no. Downstairs, Kayla arrived for her shift, her own phone blowing up with messages from friends. Is this you? Is this the place? Some sent screenshots of the article. Some just wrote, wow. And then, the call from her grandmother. I saw what you did, baby. I'm proud. In the office, Lauren Bennett was already on the phone with corporate. Her face was pale, her speech clipped and formal. No, we didn't know. Yes, the incident was documented. Yes, the blog is accurate. No, the inspector did not announce themselves. She hung up, exhaling hard. The next call came from PR at headquarters. The restaurant's Instagram was already flooded with angry comments, disappointed former fans, and foodies from around the world demanding answers. Jason ran his hands through his hair. This isn't happening. Not now. Not to me. He paced to the kitchen where Chef Brett was prepping duck confit. You need to see this, Jason said, handing him the phone. Brett wiped his hands and scrolled. The words hit like a slap. The chef's skill cannot mask a culture of exclusion. No star can shine in a house where guests are invisible. He slammed the phone on the counter. Who writes this stuff? Do they know how hard we work? Jason stared at him, defeated. Doesn't matter. Everyone's going to know by noon. This goes way beyond last night. For a moment, they stood in silence. Brett wanted to shout, to blame Amanda, to blame the system, to blame the world. But deep down, he knew what he'd seen. He'd seen the Harris family. He'd heard the whispers. He'd felt the discomfort. Amanda, back at the podium, watched the restaurant's Google reviews drop by a star in real time. Comment after comment appeared, most from people who hadn't been there, but some from regulars who suddenly had a story of their own. They treated my elderly mother with indifference. We never felt welcome. Thank you, Kayla, for your smile when no one else cared. The phone rang. It was the owner, voice low and furious. What happened? Explain it to me now, Amanda stammered. There was a mix-up. I followed protocol. The system glitched. I tried to get a manager. Lauren told me to. The owner cut her off. I don't care about protocol. Do you know what a lost Michelin star does to this business? Amanda's eyes filled with tears. She thought of her rent, her student loans, her dreams of being promoted to manager someday. She hadn't thought one night could matter so much. Downstairs, Kayla was called into Lauren's office. Lauren looked at her, something like an apology in her eyes. I want to thank you for your courage last night. The inspector mentioned you by name. Kayla nodded, uncertain. I just did what was right. Lauren smiled, weary. Sometimes that's everything. Outside, the city was waking up to the news. Food journalists posted think pieces. Local news ran segments with dramatic headlines. Top restaurants snubbed Michelin and paid the price. Online, the story spread like wildfire. People took sides. Some condemned the restaurant. Some defended it. Some called for Amanda and Jason to be fired. Some called for training, for change. By noon, Maison Leclerc was the #1 trending topic in the city. Reservations were being canceled. The lunch shift was half empty. Amanda watched the empty tables, her heart thudding in her chest. She remembered last night, the Harris family waiting, Kayla standing up, the silence that followed. At home, Monique refreshed her email inbox. A message had arrived from the Michelin headquarters. Thank you for your service and professionalism. Your report has been received. You will not need to revisit Maison Leclerc. Jade, at her laptop, was reading the comments under the article. Some cheered, some wept, some said, "That was my family." Some said, "Maybe this will finally change things." Terrence poured coffee and sat beside her, reading quietly. Monique closed her laptop, her face composed. "We did what we came to do," she said. Terrence nodded. "The truth always comes out." Jade smiled softly. "It's strange. Last night hurt, but today I feel proud." Monique kissed her daughter's forehead. "Dignity has a long memory, Jade. It outlasts every headline." Back at the restaurant, the staff held an emergency meeting. Lauren stood at the head of the table, her clipboard trembling. "Last night we failed a family. We failed our values. We failed our future. This is not who we say we are. It cannot be who we continue to be." Amanda stared at her hands. Jason glared at the floor. Brett folded his arms, refusing to look at anyone. Lauren continued, "There will be accountability. There will be changes. For some of us, this is the end of the road. For others, this is a chance to do better." Kayla, near the back, caught Rachel's eye. Rachel mouthed, "I'm sorry." Kayla just nodded. She knew the cost of courage could be high. Later, as Amanda cleaned the podium, her hands shook so badly she dropped a stack of menus. The room was empty, the echo of falling paper loud as thunder. She knelt to pick them up, blinking back tears. Lauren approached, her voice soft but firm. "Amanda, I need your keys." Amanda nodded, unable to speak. She handed them over, the symbol of her authority gone. She gathered her things, her face pale, her eyes red. As she walked out, Kayla caught her eye. Amanda paused. "I never meant for it to be like this." Kayla's reply was gentle but honest. But it was. Amanda nodded, then left, her dreams of management dissolving behind her. Jason lasted until the dinner shift. He tried to rally, tried to lead, but every order, every guest, every phone call reminded him of last night. At 7 o'clock, Lauren asked him to join her in the office. He knew what was coming. She was kind, but unyielding. "We have to move forward," she said. "We need new leadership." Jason stood, shoulders slumped, and left. The bar, once his kingdom, was no longer his. Brett remained in the kitchen, barking orders, but the energy was gone. The staff moved slower. The food, still beautiful, tasted different, lacking the spark, the joy, the magic. Word spread among the cooks. Michelin isn't coming back. Some shrugged, some celebrated. Others quietly mourned. Kayla, now the most experienced server on the floor, took on new responsibilities. She trained Rachel. She greeted every guest with the same warmth she'd shown the Harris family. Some nights were hard, some easy, but every shift she remembered what Monique had said. Dignity outlasts every headline. Weeks passed. The city moved on to new scandals, new dramas. But Maison Leclerc felt the loss. Reservations dropped. The press watched closely. The owner invested in new training, new policies, new hope. A new manager was hired, new staff trained. But the memory of the Harris family never faded. Jade, back in school, found herself the subject of whispered admiration. "You're the girl from the article, right?" Some were jealous, some inspired. Jade shrugged it off, knowing the truth was more complicated. Terrence went back to his chef's coat and his quiet kitchen elsewhere, content to let the story settle. Monique was invited to speak at a hospitality conference, her words both gentle and fierce. Excellence is not just on the plate. It's in the welcome, the waiting, the willingness to see who stands before you. The story became a case study. The family's composure, Kayla's courage, Amanda's fall, Jason's silence, Lauren's reckoning, Brett's blindness, all discussed, debated, and dissected by professionals across the country. One night, months later, Maison Leclerc received a letter. "This year, no star will be awarded. We hope that, in time, Maison Leclerc will rise again, not just in cuisine, but in character. The letter was framed and hung by the door, a warning and a hope. Kayla, now lead server, made a promise to herself. Every guest would be greeted, every reservation honored, every person seen. It was a small thing, but it was everything. The Harris family never returned. They didn't need to. Their lesson remained, etched into every plate, every policy, every nervous glance at the door. Monique, on a quiet Sunday morning, sipped her tea and smiled at the memory of that night. Jade laughed, telling the story to her friends, her dignity shining brighter than any star. And at Maison Leclerc, the table was always set. The flowers were fresh. And sometimes late at night, a new hostess would pause at the podium, remember what happened, and greet the next family with a warmth that had been hard-won. The taste of truth lingered long after the last guest had gone. Spring returned to the city with rain-washed streets, the scent of fresh bread drifting from corner bakeries, and a cautious hope in the air. Yet at Maison Leclerc, things had not simply reset. The restaurant's bones were the same: glass, steel, linen, crystal. But something deeper had shifted, something invisible to the eye but unmistakable to the spirit. On a Saturday morning, the new general manager, a sharp-eyed woman named Lauren Bennett, arrived 2 hours before service, circling the dining room with a notebook in hand. She inspected every table, touched every napkin, peered into the kitchen where Chef Brett Morgan, still there but quieter now, was prepping beets and lamb with a changed discipline. The energy in the kitchen was less feverish, more deliberate. No one shouted. Every plate was checked twice, not just for appearance, but for intention. Lauren had changed more than the staff schedule and the menu. She'd installed a new host team, one that looked more like the city itself. Rachel Morris, once the shy hostess in training, now stood at the podium, a little taller than before. On her lapel was a pin that read, "Every guest matters." Kayla Simmons was now the lead server, her name whispered with respect by new hires and veteran cooks alike. This morning, Lauren gathered her staff in a circle. The room was silent, everyone listening. She began, "Every guest who walks through our door is a mystery, an opportunity, and a responsibility. I want each of you to see people, not just plates, not just names on a list. We are here to serve food, yes, but more than that, we are here to serve dignity." Rachel nodded, her nerves easing as Kayla squeezed her arm. Brett, arms folded, met Lauren's gaze and nodded too. Even he had begun to understand that excellence meant more than technical perfection. That lunch, a family arrived, a black couple with a teenage daughter, laughter in their voices, expectation in their eyes. Rachel greeted them warmly with the practiced ease of someone who understood the weight of welcome. "Welcome to Maison Leclerc. We're so glad you're here. Table or booth?" The daughter grinned. "Booth, please." Kayla showed them to a sunlit corner, poured water, offered bread, and took time to explain the menu. The mother smiled, relaxing into the linen cushions. The father thanked Kayla, eyes kind. As Kayla walked away, she caught Rachel's eye. Both felt the silent echo of what had come before, the Harris family, the night that changed everything. Word had spread among city restaurants. Other hostesses, other managers, quietly asked about the incident, the fallout, the recovery. "How did you handle it? What do you do when the system fails? Did you really lose your star?" Maison Leclerc had become a symbol. A warning, yes, but also a spark for change. Kayla found herself invited to panels, workshops, podcasts about hospitality and justice. She spoke quietly, never self-righteous, always returning to the truth that kindness is a practice, not a performance. "You never know who you're serving," she told one room of young servers. "So you serve everyone like they matter." Rachel grew into her role. She learned to read faces and names, to balance the chaos and calm, to stand firm when pressured, to speak up if something felt wrong. Once timid, she now trained others, telling every new host, "We don't see categories here, we see people." Back in the kitchen, Brett watched these changes with a mix of humility and stubborn pride. He'd survived the storm, but the cost lingered. Every so often a guest would ask, "Is this the same chef?" He would nod quietly. Some returned because of the food, some to see if the culture had really changed. Most nights, Brett was the last to leave, cleaning his station with a care that was both penance and promise. The Harris family's review had become legendary. Hospitality schools discussed it in lectures. Other Michelin inspectors referenced it in private circles. The lesson was always the same. The guest is a mirror, and you are reflected in every moment you serve them. Monique Harris, now invited to more events than she could attend, chose her appearances carefully. At one awards dinner, she was asked about Maison Leclerc. She paused, then answered, "Redemption is possible for those who seek it, but memory is a powerful teacher. We don't return to test, but to see if the lesson was learned." Jade Harris, still writing, still tasting, found her inbox full of invitations. She smiled, sometimes overwhelmed, always remembering that her notes had started as a way to process a hurt that had become a movement. She carried herself with quiet pride, her experience now a beacon for others who'd felt unseen. Terence, her father, grew more introspective. He wrote a long letter to Maison Leclerc, unsigned, praising Kayla and Rachel, encouraging Brett, and reminding them that every night was an audition, whether they knew it or not. He mailed it without a return address. At the restaurant, Lauren framed the letter and hung it in the staff room. No one asked who wrote it. Everyone knew. The city changed, slowly, unevenly. Some restaurants doubled down on their old ways. Others sent their staff for training, posted new mission statements, held long meetings about bias and belonging. A few, quietly, asked Kayla to come and train their teams. Maison Leclerc's star had not returned. But something else had. A kind of humble grace. Reservations climbed, first out of curiosity, then out of trust. The regulars noticed the change. First-timers spread the word. "You feel welcome there," they said. "It's not just about the food." One evening, months later, a new family arrived. A couple, their son and his grandfather. The grandfather walked with a cane, his eyes sharp despite age. Rachel greeted them, Kayla seated them. Brett, seeing the grandfather struggle with the menu, came to the table to explain the dishes. He knelt at eye level, describing every ingredient, every sauce. The grandfather listened, then smiled. "Thank you for seeing me." After dessert, the family lingered, unwilling to leave. The son shook Kayla's hand. "This is the first time my father's been out since my mother died." He was nervous. "Thank you for making this feel like home." Kayla's voice caught. "You're always welcome here." Word spread. Maison Leclerc was no longer the city's most famous restaurant. It was something else, a place of transformation, humility, and genuine welcome. One afternoon, Rachel was training a new hostess, a young Latina woman named Isabel. Isabel asked, "What do I do if a guest is difficult?" Rachel smiled. "You see them. You listen. You remember that you represent more than a reservation. You represent hope." Later that night, as the staff gathered after service, Lauren thanked them. "What we lost for a reason. What we gained, we earned. Never forget that every night you're writing a story for someone. Let it be a good one." Outside, the city lights blinked. People hurried home carrying groceries, stories, dreams. At Maison Leclerc, the light stayed on a little longer as Kayla and Rachel checked every corner, every table, every light. They left together, laughing, their friendship born from fire and forged in the truth of small kindnesses. In another part of the city, Monique and Terence sat on their porch, watching Jade work on her next piece. The air was thick with summer, the sound of crickets rising. Jade looked up, her eyes full of quiet wisdom. "Do you think it mattered, what happened?" Monique answered, "It always matters. Dignity, once claimed, never disappears. It lives in every person who refuses to wait unseen." Terence nodded. "It's like a ripple in the pond. You never know how far it will go." The story of Maison Leclerc traveled. It was retold in kitchens and classrooms, whispered in new hire orientations, written in guest books and essays. The restaurant's name was no longer a warning but a lesson. Its star, lost but never forgotten, became a reminder that the true measure of greatness isn't what hangs above the door, but what happens within. Kayla, now promoted to hospitality director, created her own scholarship for young servers who showed promise and heart. Rachel became the opening manager at a new sister restaurant, hiring a team as diverse as the city. And sometimes, late at night, as the city fell quiet and the world seemed unchanged, Maison Leclerc's doors would close on another day, another chance, another story written in the language of kindness. The Harris family never returned, not because they held a grudge, but because their work was done. The lesson remained. The ripple grew. In the end, Maison Leclerc found something better than a star. It found its soul.